I had a little trouble getting on today. Maybe I registered quite a while ago and I couldn't find the link. And so I had to re-register this morning. You may have a few people in that boat.
Yeah, I had a little problem myself because I don't control the board. Lynn and Frank do when we do these things.
That's why we wait an extra 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Give everybody a chance to sort those things out.
We're all Ukrainians now, Ernie.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were talking about that before, Al, and I think we're all saddened by it, and a little bit afraid too, because we don't know where this maniac is going to take us.
Sad and angry.
Yeah. You traveling lately, Al?
Excuse me?
Were you traveling lately? I was at the theater the other night. I didn't see you there.
We changed the date, and we did travel, but not much. We haven't been traveling much.
Now, Lynn, how are we handling the bio notes for Waldo? Are we going to just print them on a board?
Yeah, I've got a PowerPoint I can share.
Okay.
So I have 8:05.
Yep.
9:05. I did it again.
I'd say go.
Okay.
My friend Waldo Cabrera, he has been a friend of this organization for many years and a very talented man. And I want to thank all of our sponsors too, Henry Schein, Gershow, Lewis Joe's company, National Grid and Covanta, and the Long Island Construction Trades Council of Nassau and Suffolk. These people all have made major contributions that have kept us afloat at a time when we would have had to worry about staying alive. So I thank you all. And I think we should start with the national anthem, Frank.
Correct.
Yep, gonna do that now. I've got one ready to go.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to have our national anthem sung by the combined choirs of the United States Naval Academy, the United States Air Force Academy, the United States Military Academy at West Point, the United States Coast Guard Academy, and accompanied by the United States Army Herald Trumpets.
great. Is that the one I sent you, Lynn?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was very impressed with it. I thought you'd like it too.
yeah, it's very nice.
Oh, so
Okay.
we have a great program. Is there anything I need to talk about, Frank, or?
Let
Did
me just pop over to Waldo's bio there, Ernie.
Okay, Waldo Cabrera has over 25 years of professional advertising and marketing experience, and he has worked with companies Fox, the HBO, Time Warner, Viacom, Daily News, Walmart, McDonald, and many, many more. He's a real pro. He was in the early days of LIMBA. He helped promote our organization as well, and he's become a close personal friend, as a matter of fact. And he has a knowledge of the Black history that is a little bit different because of his origins. He comes from the Dominican Republic, and he has a whole history that makes it a little bit more interesting to Americans who may not know all these things. Please welcome our friend, Waldo Cabrera.
Nope. Let me stop sharing. Morning, Waldo.
Well, Waldo, you're muted. I don't know if, can you unmute yourself?
It's good to see some
we go.
familiar faces. It's been so long. Even it's a pleasure, even through Zoom, to be able to say hi. Well, I'm Waldo Cabrera, and for years, for 8 years, I was a journalist producing the My Long Island TV show for Verizon Fios, and through that, Ernie was very instrumental in helping secure programming for me, and we just became friends over the years. And lately, after Verizon shut down the channel, I've been working with academia a little bit more, working with Hunter College, the Center for Puerto Rican Studies, and working with most recently City University, Dominican Studies Institute. And I had the pleasure 6 months ago of following a class on a very special project, which was the 500th anniversary of the first documented slave rebellion in the New World. And that's what I'd like to talk about today. I just want to let everyone know that I am a journalist, so this is a lot of information that I gather because of self-interest. I am Dominican, so this topic was extremely important to me, but I am not the expert at it. The experts are the people at the Dominican Studies Institute. And if at any point you want to dive into this a little bit deeper, you can find them at City College. They have a robust website and a huge archive. And if it's something that you want to get in touch with them, I can also give you the information of the archivists and the researchers at the Dominican Studies Institute. So I'm going to launch my presentation. Okay. It's funny because, oh, here it is.
And for all those interested, I just put a link to the CUNY Dominican Studies Institute in the website. And we'll post that on the LIMBA website as well.
Great. So what I'm going to speak about today is, Black history from an Afro-Caribbean standpoint. There's an old joke amongst people that, and especially in the Caribbean, sometimes you come to America and everyone says African American, but Afro-Caribbeans, we have the same heritage. In the end, the only difference between an Afro-Caribbean and an African American is where the boat dropped you off. That's just an unfortunate truth. So for anyone who's not aware, the Dominican Republic is right in the center of your screen. Some of us love Punta Cana, It's a great place to vacation, but it was also one of the first places where Columbus landed in 1492, and that's where our story begins. Where I just want to educate or let you know the Columbus's first 4 voyages, or the 4 voyages. This was the route that he took, but essentially they all ended and culminated in the Caribbean. So that's pretty interesting, all the different ways that he decided to, or that his voyages decided to travel. I was actually surprised to see how far south they went. For a little bit of history, so in 1492, Columbus has his first voyage, and soon after he dies in 1506. And the focus of my conversation here is 1521, the first slave rebellion. So if you're talking about people getting so fed up of their current situation in 1521, slavery was already fully intact, and the Dominican Studies Institute actually has letters from the generals and the governors that were positioned in the Dominican Republic, asking the crown not to send slaves from certain parts of Africa because they were difficult to control. So evidently there were certain tribes and there were certain people from certain areas that were just more belligerent, that would run away, that would just they would not be as submissive. So we have documentation that there had been minor rebellions, minor revolts, nothing to the scale of what we're going to talk about. So the Spaniards already had difficulties in the Dominican Republic with getting the Africans to be submissive. The major thing that they were cultivating in the Dominican Republic was sugar and tobacco. And just as a point of reference, the first African that landed in the United States was 1619, which is 100 years after this event. So this is something that to me was fascinating, because as we're taught American history in the United States, these are little things that, right or wrong, we're just not made aware that this situation is not slavery as it is today. It was around. Sometimes you're taught that this was when it started.
I wanted to clarify a point. You said this rebellion was 1521. Was it successful, or was it a failed rebellion?
It was not a good ending for the slaves.
Okay.
Because if you could imagine that if it was a good ending, the reason and that brings me to my next point. 1791 was the first successful slave revolution that happened in Haiti, which is also part of the island of Hispaniola. So in 1521, the Dominican Republic was not called Dominican Republic; it was called Hispaniola, and the western side of Hispaniola was eventually occupied or colonized by France, and the other 2/3 was colonized by Spain. So the part that was colonized by France became Haiti, and then the part that was colonized by Spain became the Dominican Republic. So in 1791 was the actual first successful slave rebellion, and Haiti paid a dear price for that. It hadn't happened in 1900 years, and even back when Spartacus had their revolt, they were unsuccessful. So having slaves have a successful revolt, it was basically thousands of years, and I can't remember in any history where there's a successful slave revolt until Haiti. And the reason I say Haiti paid a dear price is because after France recognized their independence, they mandated reparations, and which essentially put Haiti into perpetual slavery having to a poor country having to come up with over $21 billion to repay the French and the landowners for their for whatever losses they had to the land and whatever they owned and the infrastructure in Haiti. So Haiti paid a dear price for their rebellion. And of course, in 1521, these Dominican slaves also paid a dear price, which was with their lives. So my involvement in this project is that Dominican Studies Institute has this document, and this document is the actual letter. It looks a little bit like Arabic, but it's actually Spanish. You could, if you take the time and you download the document, which is in the Dominican Studies archives, and you can read this. This is in Spanish. It's just written in such a fancy way. And it's also a little bit of older Spanish, so some words are difficult. But I was able to get this transcribed and translated. So soon it will be released in English. And in here, this is the letter written from the general in the Dominican Republic, saying how on Christmas morning of 1521. Some slaves, while the Spaniards were celebrating Christmas, they obviously were planning, and they realized that Christmas morning was an ideal time when the guards were not expecting it to mount a revolution. And he talks about how the damage that was done and his personal injury, that he was gored with a spear. And the purpose of this letter is so that he can get compensation from the crown. The letter is not really telling the crown, this is what happened. This is not, he's trying to get some money out of this situation, and he wants to get compensated for defending Spain. So it's just the fact that we have this is a byproduct. This is not a historian trying to document the moment. And this particular document, we found it in the National Archives in Spain. The Spaniards were meticulous record keepers, and if you're interested in any of the country's lands that they colonized, you will find in Madrid in their National Archives extensive documentation about any region. I mean, these guys they reported back to the crown. And they reported often, so you can get a lot of background, firsthand background, not somebody's book, from these documents, if this is any interest to you. So the project, the Dominican Studies Institute decided to do a class, and they recruited the best of the best students in media at City College. And they asked them to visualize this document, and they created a script. They came up with some character designs, and they created a course that was called Visualizing Resistance. And at the end, many of you that have been either professors or if you were in college yourself, sometimes you work on a project, and a project is like you're selling widgets. You're doing doodads. So the projects really sometimes you're trying to prove a theory. So in this case, the Dominican Studies Institute, they wanted something substantial and meaningful for the kids to work on, and this was it. So this is an example of the animation that they came up with, and these are the kids that I was able to follow for 6 months. They're planning. They're planning. They're having the planning session in there. And this is their final presentation. The final presentation was done to some really high-end professors, and bringing this thing to life was so impressive, because it's one thing to read a document like this, but once they put music and action and the emotion behind it, it really became impactful. And I was very proud of these kids. As you can. If you look around there are very few Black or even Hispanic kids in this photograph. This was a multicultural group, and the lessons that these kids learned is that, you know, the fight for equality and the fight for freedom has gone on much longer than any of us have been taught, and it continues. And the reason that I pointed out Haiti is because here we have 1521, the first slaves seeking freedom in the New World, to 1804. That's almost a 300-year span, where you know there was a struggle going on, and to achieve success 300 years later, that's a lot. And obviously, that was much earlier than when the slaves were, the slavery was was eliminated in the United States. So we have to go back another 60 years in the United States and an advanced society to have all people be free. So it's a constant struggle that continues to this day, and I was really pleased to see that these kids from almost every corner of the world were experiencing and learning about how it all started in my home country of the Dominican Republic. Here I am, you know, documenting the professor who's sent her back with a blue mask on. And if you, before I show the video that was created by the students, and I take questions, there's a lot of fantastic organizations within the CUNY system that are focusing on Afro-Caribbean and Black history from a firsthand standpoint. They have archives where you can learn without any filtration about these things. At the Dominican Studies Institute, you can have original documents there. Center for Puerto Rican Studies, which is at 68th Street. The library is up in Spanish Harlem, and the Black and Latino Studies in Baruch College. They all have unique collections where you can learn more firsthand. And I say that over and over again because there's a difference between reading a document written by someone who lived it and then reading a book by someone who, you know, hundreds of years later has chosen to interpret what they researched. So I'm a big believer of firsthand knowledge. And I'm going to pause this presentation and then pull up. I have to stop sharing and then reshare so that you can see this 3-minute video that the kids came up with. And if you at any point feel compelled to share this, either from an academic standpoint, or you think that it's something that may be useful to whatever organization you're with, the Dominican Studies Institute, their goal is to share this document, this video, and this story with as many people as possible, especially if you have an Afro-Caribbean element in your university or college. They would love to share this with the world. So I'm going to go back in here. Okay. Documents. Here we go.
Sure.
Hey,
So that wraps up my brief presentation. There's so much more that I could talk about, and so I just wanted to tickle your curiosity, and I'm open to questions. Well, before I open it up, I just wanted to say that it was an honor for me to be able to also mentor these kids and give them visual tips and cues about storytelling. They chose not to use any words because they wanted this to be a universal document, because they understood that this is a universal issue. We have today in the Ukraine, right, an invasion happening, and you know what, the mentality is the same. Is one race feels is superior to the other, and that they deserve to conquer them. So whether you're black, white, Asian, or Eastern European or European, this is something that it's just way too common, and it's literally happening today. So by having this without any words, it's something that it could play anywhere, and we could
Waldo,
share.
I need to ask you the question. It's a kind of a philosophical question, actually. What do we get most out of Black History Month? The reinforcement of personhood, the awareness of oppression by people who are the oppressors, or perceived as oppressors. What do you see the real value, or is it a multitude of values that you're looking at?
In terms of the meaning of Black History Month, what do we get out of it?
Yeah, who gets is it, if I were among the oppressed, would I get a feeling of personhood? Like, I'm valued.
Right. So, for me, the any of these months, Black History, Hispanic Heritage, it's really a moment of reflection, and a moment to just educate yourself on, who you are, where you're from. The fact that, we're telling this story, it's not a story that I personally focus on. When I think about my heritage and my history, I like to focus on the positive aspects of where I come from. It is important to understand where you've been so that you know where you're going. But I don't think as a whole, this is a month for us to start thinking about any wrongs or injustices that were done 400 or 500 years ago. The importance of Black History Month is for the next generation to realize that there have been struggles, and that there have also been great successes despite all the struggles. And that's, to me, the most important thing. That if you're 10 years old today, maybe all is the Kardashians, or you play on your Xbox, and possibly you're just not completely aware of and you're taught Black history from an American standpoint. And in my case, that's not the Black history that I want to understand. I also want to understand Black history from a Caribbean standpoint and from an African standpoint. So, this month just gives a lot of opportunity to seek voices from different angles.
Anybody else want to chime in?
yeah, Waldo, I have a question, and maybe it's I don't know. All questions might be a dumb question, but so you mentioned our American understanding of slavery, and of course here slaves were brought on ships. They were not indigenous natives, although there were some. And then you also mentioned that the difference between Afro-American and Caribbean American is where the ships dropped you off. So are you saying that there were also slave ships that populated these islands with people from Africa, or did I understand that incorrectly?
No, that is exactly what happened. So, ironically, in the first voyage, in 1492, Columbus and his folks, they took back a few natives as slaves. So they discovered the New World. They also discovered a new source of slaves. Quite a few natives were taken back to Spain, as slaves. And once they conquered the new land, because it's documented by Bartholomew, his brother, Bartholomew is Columbus's brother, is documented that they realized that these natives were easy to conquer because they had very simple weapons.
Yeah.
So they knew right away that they were going to come back. And so the second voyage of Columbus was essentially an armada. There were like 50 ships that came in. The first one was the Niña Pinta and Santa Maria, but the second one was they were loaded and they were ready. And as soon as they started growing sugar and tobacco, that's when they needed the slave labor. For the conquest and things like that, they didn't need any slave labor. But once they started, cultivating the land and taking over, that's the ships literally were coming from Africa. And so this slave trade was going on a lot longer than 1619.
And the way I've always visualized it, as you say, with the American traditional history that you're taught, it's a one-way trip from Africa to the United States. Like that was it. That's what slave trade meant. But your point is well taken. In the Caribbean, it was a other way, two-way trip. Unfortunately, like right now, if you go to Puerto Rico, if you go to Cuba or Dominican Republic, you really cannot find anyone who can honestly say that they have indigenous blood, whether it's Tainos or the Carib natives in the Dominican Republic. They were just decimated. Number one, the European diseases, their immune system couldn't deal with it. Smallpox in particular, but they were just destroyed. So there are people that claim that they are, I am Taino, and that somehow they may have, but I don't know to this day. And I worked closely with the Center for Puerto Rican Studies about this resurgence, how this current generation, which I give a lot of props to, has become more aware of their heritage. And so there's a lot of people trying to see at, what that connection is back to the Tainos, but they were essentially decimated. And unlike, in the United States, you can find people that have native blood. You can trace back, maybe in, one of those DNA websites, they'll tell you you're 7% Taino, but it's just not something that's common. And I just don't, I've spoken to a lot of experts and no one can truly trace their heritage back to clearly being native in any way. So, they were eliminated. So my other question is about the student film that you showed, which I thought was amazing. And just it exhibited so much talent, graphic design, editing, music. So were these students just coincidentally had this talent, or did they work with the media department, or what?
Yeah. So this was an organized situation. So the Center, the Dominican Studies Institute had this document, and they were in talks with administration at City College. So they went ahead and they actually built a curriculum specifically for this class, and they recruited students that were at the top of their game,
without a doubt,
in animation, in audio, in every aspect. And they brought in all these students into one room. So they went in and they just got a hit squad of talent in order to make this happen. Because if any of you have been part of a student project at a university, first of all, these students meet maybe once a week, twice a week.
Yeah.
The efforts that had to be put together, this was it was monumental when it comes to a student project. And considering that these students are they have another 18 credits,
right?
And they have a life, and most likely they have jobs. So this was just one aspect of
it was a one semester project.
It was a one semester project. They were complete strangers at the beginning of the semesters, and it was also hybrid. So they only met in person maybe 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And I was there for for most of those in-person meetings. So it was definitely a coordinated effort planned for about 2 years. And then the kids were put together and they had to deliver a product by December, because this was a press release was issued on December 25th, and it was made public on December 25th, 2021, commemorating the 500th anniversary of this rebellion.
Well, I know, I hope you'll share the URL to the video or the file so we can post it along with this interview. You said you'd like people to share it. And I also will, personally, I know the professor at SUNY Stony Brook of the multimedia computing department, and he does a class called Benevolent Studies, where he does exactly these kinds of student projects. He'll really appreciate how much this came together and the high quality that it was done, and it was really impressive.
Yeah, I was really impressed with the kids, and the thing about it is that you're talking about students that most of them didn't know each other. So, they were all known by the professors, but they were not known to each other. And if you've been, we're all professionals in this call. When you come into a project under stress and you have to collaborate, it's difficult as grown-ups for us to
Yes, absolutely.
collaborate. Never mind these, high strung, very opinionated, 20-year-olds.
Yes.
So it was almost miraculous that they were able to eliminate ideas and filter out to the point where they came to a consensus and were able to deliver a product of this quality in such a short
You
period of
mentioned the
time.
storytelling, quality of it. It was really, really well done. Really well done.
Yeah, a lot of credit to that department, and one more thing, City College. A lot of times people talk about the city university system, and some when I was younger, they used to call it 13th grade, and it's not. It is one of the best systems out there. Hunter College is a premier.
My son's in Brooklyn College for film.
Yeah,
and
so
it's
it's
great curriculum. He
My
absolutely.
son and my daughter-in-law both graduated from Hunter. Very, very good.
Yeah, very good.
I spent years in Hunter. I think they're really an underappreciated educational institution.
Well, I think it's very quick and easy to equate money with quality.
Mm-hmm.
Great project. I appreciate you sharing it.
The class. Am I muted?
You're there, Ernie.
Can
Go
you
ahead.
start again?
You're
Okay.
live.
I was curious about the racial makeup of the group. Were they all black students?
No. There was actually, from my memory, 0 black students, a handful of Latinos, and then a mix of Asian and no Caucasians, but it was there were no black students, but it was a good all around mix. It was a nice mix. You know what? And it was just surprising because I really thought that there would be more minorities from this traditional standpoint, more blacks and Hispanics, just based on the course description. I really thought, and even when I interviewed some of the students, they were in it. Some of them didn't know what they were getting into, and were completely unaware of the actual subject matter that they were going to be depicting. They just knew that they were handpicked.
It was really very impressive. I think what you're speaking of may indicate a social change. When I went to college, there was a Black Studies program, but only Black kids signed up for it. Also true with any of the racial protests or anything else where there was a racial divide when I was in my 20s. But more recently, we see white multicultural people, everyone, participating in the racial protest. That was a big surprise to me when it happened a few years ago. And I think it's against the same context that you're pointing, that they, younger generation didn't think twice about signing up for a Black Studies course. Would not have been the case when I was 20.
Yeah, it's also something that I find interesting. I often speak about, Barack Obama. He's known as the first black president, but he is half white. So nobody ever calls him the first half white president.
That's right.
So it's just, it's just like what is it, the half empty cup or half full?
Yeah.
So that Barack Obama is that half white guy, half black guy, and so he will forever go down in history as the first black president. But it's just interesting that's how it's been labeled.
Yeah.
Invite anybody who's in the group if they have any questions.
Yes. Yeah, we have some comments, although not phrased in a question. Leah mentions the difference between empathy and judgment is knowing their story. And I think her point is well taken, that once you understand the details, you can empathize rather than judge. And again, you were saying how timely this is with the takeover now in the Ukraine. And, when you watch these things happen, I think it's so clear what's going on, but looking at it in the context of history, maybe not as clear, Certainly. Al, you have your hand up. Do you want to be unmuted there? Linda, you got him, or here we go. Okay.
Yeah, I think in some parts of our country today, a teacher would actually be fired for showing that kind of a video.
Yeah.
This would be an example of critical race theory, making students feel uncomfortable, teaching them about the realities of what slavery actually was all about and involved, some of the horrors of the reality of it. And I'm just wondering, people who feel that way say, well, our students would be psychologically harmed by seeing images of this nature. Did you feel that those students were psychologically harmed in some way by a project like this? And I commend you for showing it.
Well, I was about to make a comment, and you read my mind about this. The reason why the Dominican Studies Institute is wanted to make an animation about this is because our youngsters are not reading that document that I showed you. Number one, the document is hard to read if you're an academic. It's just very difficult to read. So never mind a 20-year-old. So they're just not going to be made. They're not going to on their own learn about this. So having the animation is a way to put it on YouTube, put it in a format that they understand, but without editorializing too much. If you read the letter, you see the animation. What happened in the animation was what happened in the letter. So none of these kids were more proud to be part of it. Now they are New Yorkers. So we the mentality of that you discussed, I don't think it's something that is prevalent in the Northeast, but maybe it is. But these students, I interviewed them, and they were extremely proud to be part of it because they honestly weren't looking at this as a race-oriented project. They were given a task. They were given a task to animate a document, and the document just happened to be a story of slavery. So a lot of them really took it more like, this is my job. If you work at an ad agency, if you work at a production company, you're given certain jobs. The client pays you. So that was really the basis of this course. And it's the reason why so many students did not really understand what they were doing before they signed up. They just knew that they were going to be given a project, and at the end they had to deliver on that project. So but they were more proud than anything else.
Well, that's the attitude that you make if this could make people uncomfortable. When I was 24 years old, I was an elected official in the union, and they required me to take courses on labor history, where I learned about Pinkerton cops shooting at workers on the street at Ford. I swore I'd never buy a Ford. Of course, I bought two since then, but that's beside the point. My point is, yes, you do get angry reading that stuff and learning that stuff. but you need it as your basis for going forward. And that's why I think it's important that these people who are much younger than us learn this.
Yeah, and it's not, look, to me it happened. It happened, we landed on the moon. It happened. This revolt happened. It literally happened. So why not know about it? And the fact that so many people are surprised, it's a good thing, and that means that the Dominican Studies Institute is doing their job, and I'm doing my job by continuing to share the story. And you know what? If you're going to be against something that literally happened, that's on you. But it takes folks like me. It takes folks like the Dominican Studies Institute to just continue doing their job. And and whatever other people, let them protest. They do them, and I do me.
Peter had a point.
Yeah. Obama was considered a black president. He himself considered himself black, probably for a number of reasons. One is he grew up in the black community. His father was black, his mother wasn't. But the standards of the time were, and probably still are, that if you were mixed race, you were considered black, and that's a heritage of slavery, where any black blood made a person black and on the other side of the racial divide. The strange thing is, when he was growing up in Hawaii, they didn't have many blacks there. So he was an outsider, even though he was black.
Yeah. Well, one thing about the slave, the masters, when I was in Cuba studying slavery and in the Caribbean, we had a good discussion with a professor over there, and she spoke about the drop of blood test. So the Spaniards they taught their slaves that if at any point you had one drop of white blood, then you weren't black. And then in the U.S., which would be more like the English colonizers, if you had one drop of black blood, then you weren't white. So it's a different way of perceiving it. So there's when I in Cuba and Dominican Republic, look, if you talk to some of my mom and you call her black, she'll get mad, she'll get upset. She says, "I am India." So there are certain Dominicans that you call them black, you insult them. And even during the Black Lives Matter, there was a controversy about Afro-Latinos not stepping up to the cause and not participating in the struggle, and not supporting Black Lives Matter because of that perception that even though it's the difference between us is where the boat dropped us off. There's in some situations a lack of camaraderie between Caribbean blacks and American blacks. So it is a perception, and it sometimes is a cultural thing, and also I think that society tells you what color you are sometimes. I don't think Barack could say he was white in any way. They were going to correct him.
Yeah, I think that's Peter's point about President Obama. Yeah.
The Spanish were very precise about tracking bloodlines. I mean, you had Jews who converted who were still considered suspect many generations after. They weren't of pure blood.
Yep.
And as far as the Afro-Caribbean community goes, I've been told by Jamaican black that they look down on the Haitian blacks.
It's unfortunate. It's I mean, we could go into a whole other case study
here, where they're both on the short end of the stick.
Yeah, in the Dominican Republic, it's a struggle. So Haiti is the poorer country. Dominican Republic is the more affluent country, and you have if you go to any construction site, if you go to any sugarcane field, the people that are laboring are Haitians. Much like what happens here. You have laborers. And you have people dying because they're packed in trucks trying to cross the border. They have there's a crisis over there, and Dominicans do look down upon Haitians. And to me, it's unfortunate because Haitians were, historically the first to put their neck on the line and to get freedom on a worldwide basis.
Right, as you taught us there, for their freedom, they paid this price of a billions of dollars, put them in centuries worth of financial slavery.
They should be on a higher, the Haitians as a whole should be on a much higher pedestal than they are, because it's amazing what they did. And even Thomas Jefferson at the time, you know, he was concerned about the example that was being set by Haiti, and he joined the blockade and the sanctions against Haiti, which is why Haiti had to eventually succumb to, you know, and pay the price. They were not allowed. They were blacklisted and they were just excluded from the world's economy.
Wow.
For seeking freedom.
Huh. Wow. And
That's
still
why they
paying
had to
the
pay
price.
the $21 billion.
Yeah, and still paying that price centuries later.
Yeah, it took them over 100 years to literally pay the debt.
Yeah.
And to this day, they're still paying it from a higher level.
Amazing. Wow. As we were just saying, untaught pieces of history. That's really very interesting. Amazing. Well, 8:57. I think we ended up just on time there. Thank you so much.
Well, I just want to say to everyone, I know I started my presentation by saying that I am a journalist who's extremely interested in this stuff. I am not the professor. I'm not the PhD. But if this is a topic that you want to pursue, you want to learn more about, please reach out to the Dominican Studies Institute, reach out to the Center for Puerto Rican Studies. They have a wealth of knowledge, and you know, it's amazing what they have in their archives.
Yeah, and we're going to put that. Lynn already looked up while you were talking the URL, posted it in the chat, and we'll make sure also to post it along with the recording of this today's meeting.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
on the LIMBA website, we'll post that.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So do we have a slide to talk about what comes up next?
We do. Our next meeting is going to be March 11th. And Julie Lutz is going to be our speaker. And she's going to be talking about public education on Long Island and why it matters, and the cost of demographic changes and different outcomes. So we're looking forward to that presentation. Thank you, Julie. I see you're with us today. And that will be on March 11th.
By the way, Julie is a member of the board for LIMBA as
Oh,
well.
yes, excuse me.
And I wanted to recognize that. Thank you. All right, so I think we are ready to close. Is there any last minute things I have to mention, Frank or Lynn?
No, I think we just learned it's going to be virtual again next time around. So
And I want to thank my friend Waldo. It's so good to see you, my friend.
awesome job and such great, fascinating meeting.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Waldo.
And nice meeting you, Waldo. Take care.
Okay.
All right, I think we're ready to sign off. We've covered everything.
Thanks all. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Have a
Bye-bye.
great weekend. Thank you, Ernie.
You're welcome.